this week it's a special Pots and Trowels as we go on tour. Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels, and this week we start in the Singapore Botanic Gardens, a wonderful 84-hectare garden on the outskirts of the city. That's about 200 acres or just a little bit more, and it is absolutely fantastic. There is so much to see here, all these wonderful tender trees, shrubs and plants that we often grow as house plants in our gardens. It was all started in 1859 and very much laid out as an English style in its day, with vistas and parkland, large trees and water features and lakes. In fact, there's still a large lake here that's known as the Swan Lake, and there's a pair of resident mute swans that just swim around all day long in these wonderful surroundings. There are lots of different areas over the 84 hectares. There's a ginger garden, there's a scented garden, a heritage garden and a piece of rainforest that's been preserved as well. So loads and loads to explore. And one of the really popular places to visit is the National Orchid Collection, and there are over 2,000 different types of orchids on show. The garden is very busy, although because it's so large people are spread out. It attracts around 6 million visitors a year, making it the most visited of all the botanic gardens in the world. So we're going to have a quick look round just to give you a flavour of this wonderful place. A really popular part of the garden here is the National Orchid Garden, which is about 3 hectares, that's 7.5 acres, of orchids of all shapes, colours and sizes, these wonderful exotic plants, all planted in a really natural setting. And orchids have been grown here in the gardens for a long time, and the breeding programme started back in 1928, and all the modern ways of breeding and propagation are researched here, and new plants are being introduced across the world. Within the garden itself you'll see over 1,000 species and 2,000 hybrids of orchids, and the garden boasts the largest display of orchids in the world. As part of that, there's also a VIP area where you can see orchids that are being named after world leaders and royalty and personalities from around the world. It really is a fascinating place to explore. The water features and lush foliage give a really tropical feel to many parts of the garden, especially on the edge of the rainforest. Although not a native of Singapore, the giant water lily Victoria amazonica adds to the tropical feel with its large floating lily pads. As part of the garden there's an existing piece of old rainforest, and everything here is allowed to grow naturally. There's all sorts of understory and big trees that provide the canopy, and they love this climate here where the temperatures can get up to 35 degrees C and only down to about 21, so it's warm all the time with a high rainfall and lots of humidity. And in this part of the garden there's all sorts of wildlife scratching around in the understory. Well, we've left the Botanic Gardens now and we've come down to the Gardens by the Bay, where we've got these iconic living sculptures full of plants all the way up the column. So we're going to explore the domes and see some more wonderful plants. The two domes are planted very differently, but both are climatically controlled to create exactly the right conditions for the wide range of plants. The large flower dome is officially the largest glass greenhouse in the world, and it houses over 700 species of plants from 5 different continents. One of the first things you see is a wonderful cacti and succulent display with some really large specimens that look like they've come straight from the desert. As you wander on a little further, you'll see the amazing African baobab and bottle trees with their large trunks. There are palms of all different shapes, colours and sizes, and some of them are very tall and very mature. Throughout the dome you'll find a wide range of flowering and foliage plants. Many of them we grow as house plants or bedding plants in our garden. And there's even an olive grove where you'll see some 400-year-old trees that were brought in from Greece, and these have got large and gnarled trunks on them. In the second dome you'll find the hidden jungle and the cloud forest, and this is a representation of a mountainous area of rainforest, and you're greeted by a 35-metre tall rainforest waterfall that cascades down the green wall full of exotic plants. As you climb through the treetop walk up into the high cloud, you'll discover a large and unusual selection of plants, many of them flowering plants such as begonia, streptocarpus and orchids that would naturally grow in this situation. And once you get to the top, you'll see a fantastic view over Singapore and the wonderful skyline with its iconic buildings. And the view from the top of the mountain is absolutely fantastic. You're really high up in the clouds, looking right the way down to the ground. You've got to have a head for heights to be up here. And once darkness falls on the garden, the super trees light up to give a magical music and light display. And if that's not enough, when you get to the airport, there's a covered area known as the Jewel where you'll see a 40-metre rain vortex and forest planting that gives a really lush and natural feel. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our whistle-stop tour of Singapore this week. We'll be back next week with another Pots and Trowels video, but not sure where we're going to be, so you'll have to watch to find out. See you then. Bye.